Hey, welcome back to Boost Your Income with Bootstrap to WordPress. And in this lecture, we're going to install WordPress in 5 minutes. All right, and we're back. Here we are on my desktop. And in the previous lecture, we downloaded WordPress. I was talking or referring to WordPress 4.0, but WordPress 4.0.1 is out. And if you haven't already downloaded 4.0.1, then go ahead and download that. Make sure you have the same version as me because we're going to be using 4.0.1 now. All right, then you'll have this zip folder here, 4.0.1. If you unzip it, you'll get a generic WordPress folder that looks like this, just WordPress. In there, you'll have all the WordPress files, everything in here, the files and the folders. Looks intimidating at first, but that's why you're taking this course, to let me ease the pain and show you that this isn't that big of a deal, and you will welcome this chaos into your life. Just kidding. Or I'm not. All right, so let's go ahead and change the name of that folder to something easier to remember, like B2W. And what we're going to be using is a local server. We need to have something to manage the website locally. Because it's PHP, we need to have a local server. And for those of you that don't already have something installed, I recommend installing MAMP. For both of you PC and Mac users, you can install MAMP. Just go to mamp.com, I believe it is, or just Google MAMP. For those of you who are using a different server, if you're comfortable with it and you know how to manage databases and everything like that, great. Otherwise, I would say ditch what you're used to using and use MAMP, just because I'm going to be instructing with it and I want to make sure that we're all on the same page here to eliminate any margin of error. Hopefully that makes sense. Download MAMP. Here we are. We need to change the document root right here to B2W or whatever you've called your WordPress folder. I'm going to hit OK. Those servers should get hot and ready here. Great. They're all good to go. Now I should be able to go to my localhost port 8888. Okay, so it's going to ask me for my language, but then it's going to say, hey, we need some database info. Great. This is where we're going to start doing our timer to see if it's possible to do the famous WordPress 5-minute install in 5 minutes or less. Keep in mind, because I'm talking, it might take a little bit longer than 5 minutes. I can do this by myself in maybe 1 minute to 2 minutes, but because I want to instruct you and kind of give you some value here, something that you can digest and remember, might take a bit more than 5 minutes, but let's see what we can do. I'm going to set up this timer here for 5 minutes. Once we hit go, here we go. 5 minutes. Here we go. All right. So we need to go to localhost port 8888/MAMP because we need to access our PHP MyAdmin, which is right here under tools. This will allow us to create and edit our database information. Here we are in PHP MyAdmin. Click on new. That will allow us to create a database. Give it a name. We're going to call it Bootstrap to WordPress. Hit create. And then there is your database shell. Right here, click on that. And now we need to add a user. It needs to have a user that's associated with the database so that user can perform actions within that database, like add new posts and blah, blah, blah. Keep in mind, this isn't the same as the WordPress user. This is just the database only. Under privileges, you want to add a new user right here. And then right there, you're going to add a username. Let's say Bootman. And this will be localhost. The username could be anything, and it could be secure, more secure if you'd like it to be. Password, generate that. Copy what they have here because you're going to need it. And grant all privileges on database, Bootstrap to WordPress. Great. Don't do the global privileges or these other two. You should be good to go. Hit go down in the bottom right. Boom. So there we go. We got our database and our database user. Now, in our code editor, open up your Bootstrap or your B2W folder in your code editor and WordPress config sample. Open that up. Database name needs to be your database name, which is Bootstrap to WordPress. Great. Username, replace this with the username, which is Bootman. Password, paste. It's probably in your clipboard still. That's the password that the database generated for you. Now we need to do the authentication unique keys and salts. Sounds crazy, really isn't. Copy this URL that they provide you right here. Paste that in your browser, and it's going to give you randomly generated unique salts. So go ahead and copy that, paste it in replacement of all of these defaults. Boom, there it is. Scroll down. The last thing that you may or may not want to do is the table prefix. You can leave it as WP underscore, but for security purposes, it's sometimes better to change that to something a bit more secure because WordPress defaults to WP. Hackers know that your prefixes are WP, so therefore they have one little bit of information about your database that maybe you don't want them to know. Change that if you'd like to something random or whatever. So I'm just going to say DBBS for database bootstrap. Why not? Okay, I'm going to save that and change the name from WordPress config sample to WordPress-config. There it is. Go back to your local host, right? Oopsies, local host, port 8888. All right, language is English. Here we go. So site title, Bootstrap to WordPress with a capital P. Remember that, folks. Username, create a username for your WordPress. So it could be admin, it could be your name, something more secure. Go ahead and do that. I'm going to say bootstrap underscore admin. Add your password. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you mine. You just need to know yours. Good enough. Obviously, it's very weak. And your email, go ahead and put that in there. And then for now, don't allow the search engines to index the site because they don't need to. Once it's live, you can change that. Install WordPress. And let's log in. So with your password or username and password. And here we are in the WordPress dashboard. The front end looks like just the generic WordPress theme. Blah, nothing like what we're going to create. But basically, that's it. We've installed WordPress and we did it in 5 minutes or less. Here it is. So we have 30 seconds to spare. Maybe we could just do a song and dance, talk to each other about our feelings, or we can cut it short, move to the next lecture, where we're going to do even more awesome stuff. Good job installing WordPress in 5 minutes. You're awesome. See you there.